Welcome back to the Bloom Sustainable Materials Podcast. You're here with Ryan and John in the Bloom Room. Today, we're going to be talking about sustainable materials and why sustainability is so important. So, Ryan, we're seeing that the awareness of climate change, ocean plastics, recycling challenges, it's everywhere. Communities, companies, governments are coming together to fight climate change. What does that mean for materials?
The materials used to make a product can represent over half of the product's carbon footprint. So by adopting sustainable materials into the manufacturing of that process, you could have a dramatic effect on the overall reduction of the carbon footprint of that specific product.
So I'm a new company and I want to adopt some new materials. It might be daunting because you don't know where to start. And I think the FDRA, which is the Footwear Distributors and Retailers of America, they released their Environmentally Preferred Materials Guide. And I think that is a great place to start out. They got everything from recycled polyester, organic cotton, natural recycled rubber, biomass like algae, and bio-based polymers.
Also, we see the FDRA publish specific minimum thresholds on how much of these materials, these sustainably preferred materials, how much of them should a company expect to be able to achieve in their product.
Yeah, and I see all the time on a product maybe a certain percentage of bio or recycled content just smacked on the product. Is that it? Like, what does that even mean?
So certainly the percentage content is one of the easiest ways to represent how much recycled content or how much renewable content is in a product, but that doesn't tell the whole story. There's a thing called an LCA. It stands for Life Cycle Assessment. So from the Bloom perspective, it's been all about LCA from the beginning, finding a restorative process and using that to produce a feedstock that we can use to replace a carbon-intensive product like petroleum-based plastics.
And what does restorative mean?
So when we look at environmental restoration, there are bio-based materials that is 100% bio-based, but may require, let's say, an exotic fruit in the middle of the Amazon jungle that only grows in that specific region. And if you were to go and deforest the Amazon rainforest to cultivate this specific crop, you could generate this amazingly high-performance material that's 100% bio-based, but as a result, you've also lost one of the prime rainforests on the planet. So, just looking at a percentage number doesn't give the full impact. We really like to focus on what is the net impact of the overall life cycle of the product.
And that's huge because when you see that high percentage of recycled or bio content, your eyes get big and you think, oh, this is great. I'm doing something that's really awesome for the environment, which it could be true. But like you said, if the demand is so high, they got to go out and start growing this somewhere and they got to take up land for it. Now they're cutting down all these trees to make room for this bio-based material.
And the same is with recycled materials. Recycled materials are great in concept. However, our infrastructure for capturing recycled materials is not very good. It's not very established, and in a lot of places it's not even present. Furthermore, with the recycled materials, a lot of times you suffer performance. So brands are limited in how much recycled material they can actually produce because the number one thing a brand can do is make their product be more durable, last longer. If you were to make a product that can last functionally for twice as long, you've cut all the impacts across the board in half. So product quality and product performance is paramount in this sustainability paradigm.
And I know right now the reality is that the Bloom content percentage isn't necessarily very high, but that doesn't mean it's worse.
Yeah, so for Bloom, we really focus on what's the impact on the algae side. How does algae help restore the environment? And so, for instance, for every kilogram of the Bloom pellets used in a product, it cleans over 2,200 liters of water and over 1,400 cubic meters of air by removing the CO2.
And these numbers aren't just something we're making up. It's data that we've gotten from a third party, from our LCA.
Yeah, the LCA has gone through a independent peer review process where experts have come in, evaluated our technology, has looked at all the inputs and all the outputs of our process, from cradle to, in our case, the gate. So we are being compared against petroleum-based EVA. We don't have complete control on making the finished product because there's lots of different products that can be made with Bloom. So we're focused on trying to compare the incumbent technology versus the Bloom technology. And when you look at that, you find that by using algae, we get a dramatic reduction in the carbon footprint of our process.
All right, so what do you think? Is sustainability here to stay, or is it just a fad?
Well, we see corporations and governments making sustainability goals and not only measuring, but tracking those through what's called ESG reporting. These are environmental, social governance, and these studies are being published by companies all over the world. The investment community has been very clear. They are investing into companies that are tracking and improving their sustainability goals, and they're divesting out of those that are not. And the famous chairman and CEO, Larry Fink of BlackRock, just recently announced that he believes that the next 1,000 unicorns, which are billion-dollar valuation startup companies, will be in the climate tech space.
Yeah, and I just think the market demand for sustainable products is through the roof. The FDRA put out a survey of consumer buying habits. 69% of brands plan to use more bio and recycled materials in future products compared to last year's products. And 64% of consumers say they will pay more for sustainable shoes if marketed correctly.
And so Bloom is supporting these brands' sustainability journeys through providing them sustainable materials that are verifiably better for the environment.
So I think that was a pretty good overview of sustainable materials. And if you guys are interested in the FDRA EPM guide, we'll link it into the description. Check it out. It's got some really good information on sustainable materials in there. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, or if you have an interesting topic that you'd like us to talk about, leave it in the comments below. If you like content like this, please consider subscribing. We'll see you next time in the Bloom Room.